Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure. We are a weekly podcast focusing on the paranormal, the supernatural, and the metaphysical. Join us for thought-provoking discussions on paranormal phenomena, conspiracies, and all things unexplained as we talk to researchers and investigators about ghosts and hauntings, UFOs and aliens, urban legends, cryptids, and so much more. Please be sure to like and receive notifications when new content is made available. You can also visit us at paranomalypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. Thank you again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure. So grab yourself a drink and a snack, turn the lights off on the way back, find yourself a nice comfy spot, and enjoy this episode of Paranomaly. Stay with us, folks. Hey, everyone. Hey, thanks for tuning in with us tonight. We are talking with Lauren. Is it Hellekson?
Oh my gosh, you got it.
Okay, good.
In your face, Adam Kimmel. He
And
can never pronounce my name, and it's so funny.
Well, we have you on the show, and I am so glad because this is going to be a great show, and people are definitely going to learn about equipment and what it's used for.
Learning.
Yeah, what it's used for, how you use it, all within the paranormal realm. And these meters, they're not just for ghosts. These meters are used for UFOs as well. Detecting radiation, the waves, and stuff like that. So, yes, we're going to be in for some rabbit holes, I hope.
I have my tinfoil hat ready. So
sweet.
I always keep it nice and close. Always next to my computer.
So, Lauren, tell us all about yourself. I know that there's a lot.
Whoo! Well, in 1985, I was born, and now I am here. Time travel. It's real, folks. It's real. Goodness, I don't know how to answer that. I'm not going to lie, Todd.
That's okay. We know that you went to school and you are a very educated girl, which you got some of that from your dad.
Some of it from my dad. So there's going to be a fun fact in here because it is a common misconception that I am a holder of an engineering degree. And it's funny that I hear that it's like the coolest rumor that I could ever have. Like Lauren's a scientist and an engineer. And I'm like,
yeah.
If I didn't have horrific like ADHD and issues with paying attention, I probably would be like Bill Nye the Science Guy now. But although I guess he doesn't have a degree either. I'd be a physicist. But I grew up. My dad was a data processor for a hospital, and I was a very, like I said, very sort of this inquisitive, weird. We were all weird though. Mischievous, not bad. Sometimes mischievous young kid who I just always wanted to know how things worked. Deeply. It got me in a lot of trouble. I would take things apart at home. I took apart my dad's TV in the basement. I thought Bill Nye did not have, I thought that was the whole thing. He was Bill Nye the Science Guy, and he like didn't have a degree in what he was saying that he had a degree in. Larry, look that up for me. Find that Google. And so I would take things apart around the house. And the cool thing is, instead of, I mean, of course I got in trouble, but instead of being discouraged to do that stuff, he started to bring home computers that they would be like upgrading at his job, and they would otherwise throw these computers away. So he would start bringing home, oh, well then forget all the stupid people that would talk crap about Bill Nye. Although maybe it was because they're saying he's not a physicist and he would talk about physics a lot. But he would bring home these computers and we would start to take apart these computers together. And that sort of sparked this like, oh my gosh, there's so much inside of these things. I want to know what's inside everything. Not like people or anything like that. I'm a little too squeamish for that. But anything electronic, I wanted to know how it worked. I wanted to see the inside of it. I wanted to see if I could build things. I wanted to take apart and put it back together. And that sort of progressed throughout my life as just like a hobby. And it wouldn't be just electronic stuff either. I would build furniture. When my parents got divorced, I predominantly stayed with my mom. She suffered from, oh, well, that makes sense. Thanks, Larry. Just be... Larry, just be here and help me out. My mom suffered a lot from mental health issues. She was a teacher. She was a reading teacher, but she had a lot of mental health issues. She was an alcoholic. So I kind of had to step into that like husband role at a very, very young age, which meant that I was like fixing the plumbing at like 13. And I electrocuted myself probably more times than I could even count. Not from the plumbing, obviously. That'd be bad. But I ended up doing a lot of things around the house, building furniture, fixing things that were broken because she didn't want people coming to her house. So I gained a lot of insight, which is how things worked all across the board. And it has always been a hobby. And I was always into art. And I ended up, when I went to college, nobody wanted me to do this, but whatever. I was a dance major.
Oh, wow.
I was a theater kid and I was a dance major in college. And
Nice.
I was a dance instructor. So my passion was in artistic expression and self-expression. And that is what I ended up doing in college. And then I was a college dropout. So yeah, woohoo. So there's that. I did try to join the Army because I really wanted to be a helicopter mechanic.
There you go.
And it's funny, when I ended up meeting my biological siblings, because I was adopted, I found out that my biological brother is a helicopter mechanic in the Army. So that was super wild. But so from that, like, then we all have, in 2004, because we were all, of course, we're all spooky kids in some way, shape, or form. 2004, the year I was graduating high school, was when ghost hunters, you're not missing much of that. Oh, I know. I just wanted to work on airplanes. Like taking apart a helicopter, like Rosie the Riveter. I was Rosie the Riveter for like 10 freaking I'm trying not to curse. 10 freaking years for Halloween. That was like my go-to. Ghost Hunters, premiered, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's other spooky people out there. And I'm just all into this, art and self-expression and dance and all the weird stuff. And I was a horror lover and I was a theater kid. And, I have like every Dean Koontz book to ever exist in the world. And because I was a theater kid and a dance major, you're kind of like nerdy. You don't really fit in anywhere, really. You're with the weird kids. You're with kind of the preppy kid. You're with everybody. And it wasn't until I realized that there was this whole community of like spooky people that are into ghosts that I was like, maybe that's where I belong. And it wasn't until probably very recently that I stepped into sort of the public aspect of the paranormal that I was like a big exhale. And I was like, I've spent so long not being a part of this like public, huge community of people that think just like I do. And like, I'm here now and here I am.
But what was the thing that got you into the paranormal? And I mean, because you either start at it because you had an experience,
you grew up in a haunted house,
right? So what was it that pulled you in?
Horror stories, scary movies, staying up too late and sneaking like HBO with your big sister and telling ghost stories and Ouija boards. And it was like I feel like a lot of, especially girls, we all, I hate to say, like, when you are in although I don't know, I think there's probably a lot of people that have wonderful, loving parents that are all still together. But when you are coming from this sort of like broken home that was sort of like ripped away from you, me and my sister are both adopted. So we ended up in this space where we're like, oh my God, the people that put us up for adoption didn't really want us. Do our parents not want us? You go through a lot of this, like, nobody wants me, I don't belong. And so you find ways to sort of escape. And my escape was like horror movies and scary things that had heroes that slayed the monster, and zombies are still love. Like, when I have a zombie nightmare, it's like my favorite kind of nightmare. Like, give me all the zombie nightmares. And you find a way to sort of escape. And mine was being scared made me feel like that's okay. Because if I can get through being scared, if I could survive being scared, I don't have to be afraid of being alone. I don't have to be scared, of anything. And so I think that was a big thing that let me step into sort of like the spooky world. And then realizing that people like are scared for a living, like they do scary stuff for a living at these scary places, was so eye-opening. And it made it even more exciting that it was a real world out there, that other people are actually interested in this, and they're not necessarily outcasts. So I think that's what it was. I didn't have my first paranormal experience until I was 27 years old.
And
I mean, I'm sure I had other ones, but they didn't. The only one that registered really that I was like, that just happened. 24. I was 24 because I was in my first apartment.
And when that happened, of course, you have an analytical mind. You want to know why that happened.
I want to take it apart and see how it works.
That's correct. Now, is this what set you on the path for equipment and things of that nature?
So when I was 24 and I had this experience at my first apartment, I was like, I am living in a space where I could just do this at home. This is great. So yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm broke. This shit's expensive. What can I do? So I'm pretty sure my first kit of paranormal stuff was a mag flashlight, a digital recorder. It was like an old, just like an old Olympus.
Absolutely.
Digital recorder. And now this is like the real stuff. Cause I was making scary movies at my house using my dad's camcorder, so it was like I was doing the found footage, spooky ghost stuff, but it was all fiction to me. And although I wish I could find those tapes, because who knows, what if I caught something that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, I'm super poor. I don't know what to do. So it was, I didn't do cat balls, but I did like light, airy stuff. So it would be like crumpled up tinfoil was one thing. Crumpled up tinfoil, mag flashlights, cheap digital recorder. And I started to investigate. I knew everybody in the building. So I started to investigate like other people's apartments. And I remember my friend Jake was one of the first apartments that like I went and we investigated, and we just sat around like candles, and we were waiting for like the candles to move, and we were trying to do EVPs and all this stuff. And we investigated the whole building too. And it wasn't until a little bit later, I ended up moving my mom into that building because she could no longer like independently really care for this big house that she was like refusing to leave. We had to pull her out of it. Long story short, I moved her into that building, and she was never somebody that was, she loved Dean Koontz, but it was the same thing. It was all fiction. Never talked about ghosts, never acknowledged that stuff. Thought me coming home from school, and hi patients, me coming home from school. Lauren Hellekson, he said my last name right. Tell Adam Kimmel. People know it. never was into that stuff. Always thought it was so silly that I would like race home from classes to make sure that I didn't miss Ghost Hunters on the Sci-Fi Channel. And I moved her into my old apartment. And before I moved out of that apartment building, she told me that she had an experience in the same apartment that I had my first experience in. And I had never shared that with her because I was like, man, she's not into that, whatever. Me and my mom were never, I lovingly say that we're closer now that she's gone than she was when she was, on Earth. But she told me, she was like, this is so weird. And stop it. Stop putting it on the screen. Thank you. That's very sweet. You are awesome too. She told me, she was like, I don't know what's wrong. And I'm like, what do you mean? Are you okay? And she's like, I think I heard a ghost. And I was like, oh yeah, Mom, tell me about it. And she was like, and she told me this, like she heard her name one morning and she was like, I went out into the hallway and nobody was up. It was like 4:00 in the morning. And she's like, I just kept hearing my name, like Linda, Linda. And we ended up finding out that apartment building and that apartment was where her great grandmother lived.
Oh, wow. Wow.
No idea. So that's like the coolest sort of personal experience that I've had with the paranormal. And then my first public ghost hunt that I was like, because I'm doing a lot of stuff, and still public, like ghost hunts, they're so expensive. And the first public ghost hunt that I got to do was on Halloween at the House of Wills. And I actually posted the video from it on National Paranormal Day. And I ended up getting my first, like, what I thought to be and hear to my ears, my first EVP. And then that kind of just like sealed the deal. Wow. Building equipment, though, didn't really happen for me until probably like less than 2 years ago, to be honest.
And that's going into, I'm going to go back just a little bit. So now you had this awesome experience with finding out about the grandmother. And so this really started to spark your interest more.
Oh yeah, it sealed the deal.
Yes. So now, because one of my favorite things is EVPs. I mean, without a doubt, I'm like, I get an EVP and I'm like, where'd the voice come from?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Where did it come from? I'm fascinated with voice anyway. I'm like, to me, it's just putting your voice on audio. How does it get there? I mean, it's like a whole thing. My head just spins because when I was young doing paranormal, I used a reel-to-reel. And, and that reel-to-reel player, I am this way. I believe that spirits can manipulate a tape easier than digital. And the other reason why I say this is because on digital, there's a lot of noise cancellation, things like that. And I think that's where I get my, I believe that tape is better. Yeah. But I can't prove that, obviously. But because I've heard some pretty good stuff on digital, and I've even caught stuff digitally that I'm like, what the heck? But it's always, where'd the voice come from? And I think Jim and I, we have talked a lot about how the heck can your voice be put on tape, which is basically rust? How does it stick there?
I think that's got to be where the magic happens, or where they're influencing something. That black box. I mean, I'm sure that people understand, scientifically what's going on there, but I'm sure it's something down on that level. I shouldn't say I'm sure. I suspect it's something down on that level that they're able to perhaps manipulate. They're not actually maybe they're not actually, projecting any kind of voice. They're actually just creating the effect of what we hear as a voice, direct from, manipulating the tape,
Well, we also think of like for EVPs, I'll use an example of like two-way radios. So if I have this radio over there and I'm in another room and the person over here can't hear me in this other room, and I talk into the two-way radio and I go, "Hey, I'm here." And then they hear it in that radio. The person that's between us can't hear that. But it doesn't mean that those radio waves carrying my voice from one radio to the other don't exist. So there's that. Is it traveling? Because we have this obsession in the paranormal with, electromagnetic radiation being this sort of like secret to the paranormal, and radio waves are on the electromagnetic spectrum. And then we also have.
Let me back up, Lauren, because I think this got misconstrued a little bit. Me personally, for example, when someone created I can't remember who did it. They were wax discs, and they could put their voice.
Google it, Larry Eisler.
They were wax discs. I don't know if that was Edison that did that. Yes.
Yeah, like the tubes.
Yes.
Yeah, Mary had a little lamb.
And they could get their voice onto that.
Yeah.
That, to me, is the mystery. How the heck does your voice stick to that? You know what I mean? I just really don't understand. It blows my mind. I mean, like you have a tape and you say your name and there it is on the tape. I mean, how does your voice stick to that tape?
Well, in terms of those tubes, when we talk, the only thing that's actually leaving our faces is, thank you, Nick Simons, I see you. Leaving our faces is just these vibrations in air pressure.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to mention. Yeah.
So these thank you, Larry. Thank you, Simons. No, not stone tape theory.
I was just going to say, I believe that they are onto something
different. The only thing is that so your vocal cords will vibrate, and all I'm doing essentially is manipulating the air pressure with the vibrations coming. Can I just do this more? Out. And then when and my husband's on. He said, "I know nothing. Hi, Beeb." Christopher. Yes, you do.
But what makes it stick?
Well, those tubes, that's little tiny, these micro vibrations on the tube because it's made of that wax. So it's very rudimentary. And that is why when you play it back, it's very like the needle is just going up and down over all of these little vibrations that have been created with the vibration of your voice. And it's playing over that just like a record. If you use a microscope on a record, you'll see these tiny little like hills and valleys on the record, and the needle up and down over it, and it plays it.
Well, everything kind of really has a memory, basically. I mean, I'm going back to the stone tape theory here because that makes more sense to me.
I think it should also be brought up here that, our brain is actually what creates the sound,
we perceive it.
All, right. That there is no actual sound, so perhaps, when we listen to a tape, what's on the tape or what's being projected from the tape is just that same vibration, that same waveform information that our brains, interpret as the sound. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I don't know how to sort of fit that all into this beyond this, but that ought to be something kind of fundamentally important here.
Right. And Nick just said here about the SB7 is only creating the vibrations for the alleged spirits to manipulate the vibrations coming out of the speaker. Now, that is true, because it is, if anything is sending a vibration through there, any energy, anything, it's going to come out and we're going to interpret what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So really, how, if that, because of the complexity of the brain, are we really talking to each other?
There is a lot of, going back to things like spirit boxes, there's so much subjectivity and audible pareidolia that goes into spirit box
Right.
sessions. There is Ron Iacovetti and Lourdes Gonzalez, they do something called
Static
where they were using white noise, and I find that super fascinating, because they're taking out that aspect of radio stations. And I find that really interesting. And
Yes.
but then again, all of this is still, we're still traveling along the electromagnetic spectrum with all of these techniques and all of these ideas.
Right.
Although, I mean, when you think about it, sound down to its super basic core of what it is, which is just a change in the air pressure around the vibrations coming out of your face hole, then that's why it's almost like language and understanding is all so super subjective, because if you go to another country, they're all talking, they're all communicating, but your brain can't understand it.
Right.
It's a different kind of sort of auditory perception, because it's a different language.
Right. And it, that makes a lot of sense, because
It's what it is. Your face holes.
And it makes sense because
on your meat sack.
If a cat or a dog, they bark or meow, even though we don't know what they're saying.
Those are the answers to the entire universe coming out of those face holes.
And the other thing is frequencies. The different frequencies that a human can hear compared to maybe what that dog,
like infrasound and
yes. So we are really on these different wavelengths, and that's why ghosts are, and spirits, that's why it's so hard to comprehend if it is a ghost or not. First, we'd have to all die together, go beyond the realm, come back with the knowledge, then only can we say, okay, that's what it really is. So we're speculating on everything.
Even the entire existence of ghosts in and of themselves is a speculation.
Yes.
And it's purely subjective.
Yes. And it makes it more when you bring religion into it and beliefs.
Oh, yes.
And, then things spiral out of control. It's like, I have heard that aliens, ETs, are ghosts. They're on the same spectrum. They can go in and out of the veil, so to speak.
But you could go even further and say aliens from where, though? Because there is a very large universe.
Oh,
and
yes,
for us to just say aliens in general can exist on a different spectrum of energy, that's more like multi-dimensional beings, because we're aliens.
Absolutely. Multi-dimensional. So
we're aliens. We're not like necessarily technically native to this planet. We don't grow out of the ground.
Right.
So we're aliens.
Right.
Why the fuck can't I see ghosts? Oh my God, maybe I'm a ghost. Maybe you're a ghost. Maybe we are ghosts to other things.
And you know what? If I had the time, I would go back, because I do have an EVP that says, "Are you a ghost?"
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I was completely freaked out. So
I often wonder too. So we put a lot of stock in well, welcome back, Ronnie. Welcome back.
That's a long story you do not want to go into on.
Larry, that's going to have to be a topic for the hot take that I'm going to do. I am always very fascinated when it comes to the collection of paranormal phenomena, how just blindly we believe the evidence that we perceive to capture. So taking EVPs, for example, we think that because we're in a building where old Greg died of sepsis, and we get an EVP that says, my stomach hurts, that, oh, that's old Greg who died from sepsis. That's what it is. My stomach hurts. Boom, we're done. That's it. We got it. That's the best evidence ever because it's validated because Greg died of sepsis. His belly would hurt. And it's like, what if that's like Exxon 7 from Dimension 28, who's just like, guys, watch. They call their receptacles for nourishment bellies. My belly hurts. Watch how crazy they're gonna go.
I think this is like my whole thing. I mean, this is like my raison d'etre in this field, is to kind of bring this to people's attention in the paranormal. We're definitely way too assuming that everything is, disembodied spirits of our loved ones. I think there's potentially a lot of reason to. I think we know that these nebulous fourth dimensionals that are out there seem to have this kind of mentality. They're just very. There's a kind of trickster element to a lot of these beings that has just been clearly established, and
we're clearly gullible, so why wouldn't they?
Yes,
right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's difficult to narrow it down, but we should all take a step back, and consider that. I tend to actually think that I have no way to prove this, but I tend to think that maybe most of our interaction, it could even be 90%. We don't know. 90% of what people think is grandpa and grandma, might be, these fourth dimensional non-physical entities that just for some reason, and it might just be that they enjoy doing that they get some kind of sense of pleasure or satisfaction from, why do we? I mean, we experience that same kind of tendency to want to kind of mislead people and get kind of joy and kind of elation from doing that. It seems possible that there's beings out there that just do this all the time.
I love this idea because I was just at Whitehall Mansion Paracon, and when I say that we were having this exact same conversation, because we as humans, naturally, we want to humanize everything. We want to humanize that last piece of broccoli on the plate because we don't want it to be lonely. We want to humanize our pet rocks. We want to humanize our pet cats. We want to humanize, like, we want to find this community so deeply. Like, we're pack animals naturally by nature. That's why pareidolia exists, because it's in our DNA to try to recognize other human beings. So imagine if, and I digress, that we absolutely humanize this energy. And I think that that's putting this in this sort of like myopic sort of like tunnel vision when it comes to, yeah, see, pet bee named Fred. See, Fred. Bees are humans. It's okay. Yeah. But we sort of tunnel ourselves into this idea that we're thinking that these are all people. That's all people. It's all dead people. It's dead grandma. It's dead grandpa. But I know it is because, and when I said that when my mom passed away, I saw her on multiple occasions, like viscerally saw her, freaked me out. But there's a very big part of me that, of course, I stay open. Maybe it was my mom coming back to be like, hey girl, what's up? I just wanted to let you know, I'm here. But then also too, like, if we think of, and this is a very simplified version of this idea, we're going to take a nature photographer. A nature photographer goes to this place where humans do not exist because they're going to go take a picture of the elusive, spotted eggland chicken bird. And they're going to go into the natural habitat, and they know that being a human being is going to upset that habitat. It's going to mess up everything. They're not going to be able to get their good pictures. So what do? They camouflage themselves. They study the environment. They study the patterns. They study everything that is about this animal that they want to, I'm in, Ronnie, that they want to know and document. And then they put themselves into that environment camouflaged so that they can gather all of this information and all of this documentation of this species that would otherwise run away if they saw a human. So when we're thinking that we're going into a haunted location with, old Greg that died of sepsis, we're going to be trying to communicate with old Greg, and old Greg is going to communicate with us. But really, maybe it could just be this camouflaged being that's studying these interactions of these fucking weirdos that go into these abandoned buildings with their cameras.
Well, then you get into thought forms and tulpas. Is it something that we created? That's why history of the place is
Could we just be investigating us?
Right. Because, thought forms, we know that thought forms are powerful. And once you start, you plant that seed that, old Georgie had sepsis and,
Greg, Todd, Greg.
And you start telling everybody else that comes in here, hey, Greg had sepsis and, it was a horrible death.
That
and
power of suggestion is
yes.
very,
and
very
now everybody's thinking
strong.
This thought form, and it's actually creating a being, a thought form being.
Well, that is, in the 70s, they did that entire experiment where they created their own spirit in order to manifest phenomena. And it was a big study. What was it? Larry Eisler, where are you? What was that experiment called? He's probably not even watching anymore. I keep calling you out, Larry.
Well, that's a little bit like the Montauk experiment.
Troy? Is it the Troy experiment? Troy? I don't know. Gosh darn it. It's an Philip experiment. Thank you. Yeah, so it was this whole experiment where they created this timeline, and then they started, thank you. And then they started to interact in a space that was did not have this activity. And they created this storyline of this Philip, and they started trying to interact. And the more that they sort of, pushed this storyline and this narrative and tried to interact and tried to call out and they started to receive this sort of like paranormal activity. And there's this whole idea that the power of suggestion can even, manipulate how we perceive very natural things that are occurring around us. And we can, and then no matter what, then, you could be doing the Philip experiment and create this being named Troy, and you do it so profoundly that if I go into that space, I might even come in contact with this being that never existed before you made him up.
And that's why the location history is ever so important. You can go to Waverly. No, not because it's become entertainment. You used to be able to go to.
But how is history still not power of suggestion when it comes to the paranormal?
Well, that's true. But and you can look it up too. If you go to a house, you can get the deeds. You can find out who lived there, who died.
But history is just a real life Philip experiment, though.
Basically, yes.
It's just true.
And
they're just real storylines.
And with thought forms, though. Because that's basically what that is a thought form. They thought the existence of that entity. So imagine what this does in the grand scheme of things, such as God. So, as you can see, the power of it with so many people that think it, yeah, we have this... There's a big problem. But when it comes to the paranormal, I'm just going to go to ghosts with this one. What happens is when you go to investigate someplace like Villisca, we all know what happened at Villisca, okay? But let's say somebody had threw in a new character, and new people now start coming, and they don't know the full history of the place, and they start talking about this new thing. And after a while, they're going to be communicating with that new thing, because just like the Philip experiment, it is now its own entity.
But also, I mean, just to bring up, because we're just talking about this in the case of the Philip experiment and whatever you're talking about, there's also the possibility that we're talking about another trickster, fourth dimensional, who, you know, led the people to believe that, you know, that it was a thought form entity when it was actually, you know, something else. Yeah.
And they knew the history too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So now we're looking at three different things here.
And this is why it's so important to have these conversations, though, because there is, at the end of the day, and I know that this would make people uncomfortable. That's fine. Being a paranormal investigator doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean, I don't care how long anybody's been doing it. It doesn't mean anything. There's no certifying agency there, unless it's, you know, something, of course, made up, get a certificate, whatever, because I've seen those. There's no field of study around this stuff. So none of it are we talking about.
Lawrence, we're not talking about
no, that's just Vince. So we don't, there's no way for us to have this. I know, I probably should be wearing this by now. This entire conversation is a tinfoil hat conversation. Everybody put on your hats. But I'm gonna keep this. I have a high ponytail. I can't put on a hat today. But there's no, can I say there's no certifying agent for a 50th time? But we have these concrete like rules and ideas that if you deviate from them, people will get very upset, and they will get and I'm bigger than the biggest ever believer in the paranormal. Good. Honestly, when it comes to people that are just getting into the paranormal, and I will ask, do you believe in ghosts? And they go, yes, I do. And I say, great, throw that out the window, but keep the window open.
Well, that's why it's so important, like we was talking backstage, to become, you basically, in this field, you need to become a carpenter, an HVAC technician. You need to be a plumber. You need to know how everything works, including weather, humidity, moisture, to explain how a house contracts and expands, to eliminate everything being a ghost, because not everything is
for sure. But you also have to stay open to all of these sort of science fiction ideas as well too. Yes. And you also have to know, you need to know how to separate your personal theories and opinions, because no matter what, your opinions about the paranormal, your theories about the paranormal, your religious beliefs, I don't care what kind of experience that you have, and this is going to be very divisive, and I apologize. All of that's purely subjective. Your religious beliefs are subjective.
That's right.
Your belief in demons are subjective. This is it, and it will absolutely change the way that you approach a situation, because you already have an idea in the back of your head that that's what this is. So that's why it's like, I know it's just all the demons' faults. That's why I'm like, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in, I can't say I don't believe in aliens. That literally can't get out of my mouth. But then I also believe in all of them at once, because you have to be very, very open and not skeptic. I do not like the term skeptic, because skepticism, to me, if you are in the paranormal community, it's very difficult to be skeptical, because we are all in the back of our brains really wanting to find that information. So it still leads us into this sort of place of subjectivity. So don't necessarily be a skeptic, more so think about more like analytical and critical thinking, and have a very clear and concise, like, list or checklist of things that you either want to accomplish or organize when it comes to stepping into an idea or a thought process. So when my theory for what I might think a ghost is, instead of just being like, this is what it is and that's what I'm going to look for, I'm going to be like, how can I frame this as an experiment to test this idea? And then how can I make that experiment recreatable and allow, my friends or my colleagues or other people in the industry to try this technique and see what kind of data they come up with.
And see that here's the thing. When I go into a house, when I go into a house and because somebody has paranormal activity, I don't look for the ghosts. I look for the cause. So someone says the steps are creaking. Okay, I'm going to look up, first off, the barometric pressures. I'm going to look up everything that's going to cause that house to contract, expand, whatever, because I need to know exactly what happened. The pipes bang. The door opens by itself real slow. Okay, well, that could be a contraction of the house, and now it just come off, and the door is very slowly moving.
Then once you have all of these natural reasons for why that phenomenon is happening, what are the next steps?
Okay. So if you can't, what you're going to do is you're going to go at this investigation. You're going to debunk everything until it can no longer be debunked. Then
are you debunking based on story? And you're saying, well, when you hear the stairs creaking, or are you hearing the stairs creak and you're saying, oh, I see why they're creaking?
Right. If I'm there at the investigation and them stairs just creaked and no one, of course, is on the stairs, well, I'm going to find out why the stairs creaked. So this is where data is very important because I need to know the time. That way I can look up weather conditions, humidity, moisture, all that to see if the house is expanding or contracting. Once everything has been viewed that it's how do I want to put this?
There's no explainable explanation. I want to know what the next steps are.
If for example, all the weather patterns are perfect, the steps shouldn't have been creaking, the house wasn't contracting and expanding because there was no moisture or humidity or any of that. Now I can look at the plausibility or possibility of something paranormal, supernatural.
And you know what?
Only then can you do it.
I would add in. I'll go. Sorry, finish, Todd.
Because once you determine why that door opened and it's moving real slow, once you determine what that's from, the steps are creaking, the pipes are banging because it's an old radiator system and there's air in the line. So every now and again, that air pressure builds up and pop, you get a pop or a bang. So once all these things are eliminated, then can I say, wow, you know what? That bang I heard, it definitely is now something plausible.
Mm-hmm. I would just bring up here. So there's one more checkbox that I would throw into the mix here. Just coming from my own experience, and this is particularly to do with sounds. Are the creaking sounds that you're hearing in correlation with what you're thinking, or if you're thinking about them? So one thing that has established to me beyond any shadow of a doubt that some of the sounds, particularly, at least with me, they mess with electronics, and I'll have screens that will crackle and just do really weird stuff that I know that even if there was some just drastic temperature change, that would not do that, and it's so often, sometimes like 90% of the time in correlation with me
Jim,
saying something to them or them coming up in my mind or something like that. And when you see these correlations so often, it starts to become mathematically improbable that there's not some kind of relationship between them. But go ahead, Todd. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, but after everything has been has been dismissed. And now you're going into, okay, then it must be possible, paranormal, supernatural, alien, what have you. That right there is then when you go, I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years. I have one heck of a huge plausible folder. This is either plausible or possible ghosts, aliens, what have you. Of course, I can't tell. I've never been to a house and told someone that their house is haunted. I can't. That's not. I am there to roll out any ghosts until I can no longer do it. And if I need to tell the homeowner, hey, you do have something going on that I can't fully explain. That is all I would say. I'm surely not going to tell them their house has demons and evil entities like I see a lot of people do. So yes, so Jim, you're right. Things can happen. Absolutely. Just cannot be explained by elimination.
Yeah.
There's a lot of phenomena too that could be happening naturally that can't be explained as well. So I appreciate that your house is haunted is never something that, but I will say that private when it comes to private investigations and the teams that do private investigations, I mean, I do hope that they are ticking all the boxes, all of these sort of like, natural things. It's when we get to the public display of these investigations, I think where that sort of changes the narrative. Prey on ghost hunters. Demons only prey on ghost hunters. True. Truth. Yep. It's aliens.
Yeah, it's aliens.
Because we're also trying to explain a phenomena that we don't even know how to. Okay, so all things aside, when it comes to the work that I want to figure out and the questions that I want to be answered, I feel like when we are paranormal investigating, that we are going. I know I had to restart. I had to prime the engine. That we are going to the end result. Straight to the activity, and even like looking at the atmosphere and all that other stuff, we're still making this assumption based on we would know what to do if we couldn't explain something.
Right. And
that's why I don't do, me personally, or even really very often, unless I'm like specifically requested to do private investigations. Because unless I'm going, usually when I'm called to go on a private investigation, it is because I'm going in because there's something mechanical that they want me to be able to look at, and they want me to run, baselines all over the house and things like that. I don't ever really go on the private investigations with my team to look for ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, if it's to no, I mean, even if like we do the pre-investigation and they're like, okay, things are happening, we're going to investigate again. I typically don't do that one. I'll do the pre. I'll be like, hey, maybe this or that, the other thing. But I am more interested in the environment that stimulates activity than I am the activity. Like, I am not interested in finding ghosts.
Exactly.
I'm not interested in finding spirits. Because I don't know enough about what is causing the phenomena or what the phenomena is for me to care if a cat ball gets rolled off of a table. It's cool, but I have no interest in that. I have no interest in it because I have no interest in a REM pod going off. I have no interest in a motion sensor going off. I don't have interest in any of that. I have interest in what is the basis for, what am I trying to say? The triggered result of paranormal phenomena creates that sort of like dopamine kick.
Yep.
And I'm not interested in the triggered result. I'm interested in like what is harboring this environment that we think there are ghosts.
Well,
Does that make sense?
yes, and that's where meters come in. You can like, I've been told a million times that I'm wrong, but if you have a Mel meter and I have a Mel meter, okay, and we set them both on.
I'm not even talking about equipment either. It's like not environment. It's like
But
I'm not interested in the triggers.
But you would need to know why the meter goes off. You would need to know if that's from a solar flare or if that's from, you would want the scientific reason or close to one on why that meter went off.
And we have no idea how to answer that.
Exactly. So now again, we're debunking until we can't. So if we do, let's say you look at the cell phones, nobody has that. One of your pieces of equipment that you have that I want to get is your static thing.
The Searpod.
Because and I've never even thought about it, but you do transmit a lot of static electricity, which can create false positives in these equipments. So
now the Sear device, if you're staying away from it, that's why I like it, because it's not really too like volatile when it comes to. I will say though, the Sear device, I guess that's a really good example of a piece of equipment that I made that sort of facilitates this experimentation that I want to do. It's like, I want to know where the phenomena is coming from. I don't care about the phenomena itself. Right. I don't care if a ghost is walking around a room. I just want to know why a ghost isn't walking around the room every single day.
Right.
And I don't think it has anything to do with the phase of the moon or anything like that. If we do tinfoil hat time and we do ghosts or fucking aliens, I'm very much like Portal, time slip, space time, which technically, if we think about like movement in atmosphere or like in our general space, how static is created with friction in the air. Think about if you're cutting open just random space, how would that not create an imbalance of electrons, thus creating static electricity? So there should be static present right before phenomena happens. So it's almost like I want to be able to predict. There we go, Lauren. There we fucking go. I want to predictable. You should be able to predict phenomena before it happens, not put a REM pod down and wait for it because you asked old Greg to say yes or no questions.
Yes, exactly.
But you have these things in place like, oh, static is happening in this area, which means that if static is happening in a few minutes, this device should go off, this should go off, or this should happen, or this or that should happen. And I do not think, because personally, the theory that I'm working with when it comes to building my experiments, I think it's very intentional. And that's just based on, because I have other phases where I, think it's old Greg who died from sepsis, and we want to figure that out because I have to keep my window open. But the working idea that I am basing any experimentation around is finding the precursor to phenomena.
Yes. Yes.
And it's not barometric pressure. It's intentional. To me, it could be barometric pressure. It could be fucking sun flares. It could be the phase of the moon. I do have another theory too of why we hunt ghosts at nighttime. Multiple theories.
Yeah, but you can hunt ghosts anytime. It's not.
Do you want to hear my theories?
Yes. Let me hear why people do it at nighttime.
Because yes, we can do whatever we want. I have a lot of activity that happens at Ohio State Reformatory during the daytime hours. That's fantastic. And that's great. But so if we go to like back in, cave times where we all lived in the caves and we were sort of taught to be afraid of the dark. when you are in the dark, your senses are magnified times like a billion. So you're more likely to pay attention in the dark. So that's kind of like one theory with that. It's just a little bit easier. Things are happening all around us, sure, but it's more prominent at nighttime because we have all of these people out in the same place. We're all, no matter what, even people that are like, oh, I ain't afraid of no ghosts. It's nighttime. We all have our senses are heightened, no matter what. It's in our fucking DNA, guys. I don't care how badass you are and how not afraid you are. Me too. But I don't typically use a flashlight in dark places either. But it's because I enjoy that heightened awareness that I get from not having a flashlight on while I'm walking around dark places. Another one too, if we go back to electromagnetic radiation, and this one's so fun. This is sort of playing on the idea that EMR is like the secret hidden key to, what phenomena is made of or comprised of. In terms of at the very, very top of the electromagnetic spectrum is, gamma radiation. And in our atmosphere, the closest thing that we have, our moon, in terms of radiation brightness and strength, the moon is brighter than the sun when it comes to radiation. So that's why people act a fucking fool under, now I'm like cursing more. I've done really good. I only curse like 4 times.
I was going to say, you're ramping up here.
That's because we're getting into like witchy territory. But the moon is brighter than the sun in terms of radiation, especially electromagnetic radiation. So that's why people act crazy under a full moon. And that's why sometimes maybe we'll experience a little bit, a ramp up in some activity. And that's where a lot of ghost stories and cryptid stories and things like that, a lot of it's centered around like full moon energy. And full moon energy scientifically is a very real thing.
Well, sure. All that dealing with the moon cycles, excuse me, that all plays a part. When I was young, I didn't really think of it. But when I got older, I used to ask this guy, hey, why do you catch more fish on this day and not this day? And he's like, because it's the cycle of the moon. And I was like, are you kidding me? All this time,
was he catching salmon?
Probably. It was for any fish.
It's not all fish don't do. There's very specific species of fish and bird that will do like their migratory patterns.
Oh, well, that would be salmon. Yes.
The moon, and it's super fascinating.
Yes, and I did not know this. And animals also do the same with the moon. Deer, they move on those days when the moon's at a certain position, which I never knew all this, and then started to find out when apps started coming around, and they would have the moon cycles, and absolutely those deer move on a certain time with that moon. So yes, it's very, very interesting on how that works.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where we was going with all this, but
I talked about investigating at nighttime, and you're like, you can do it all day long, and I was like, do you want to hear my theories about nighttime investigating?
Well, it's also more quiet at night too, so
yeah, which could be like a blessing and a curse,
right?
Because then because also too, it gets a little bit cooler. So like the settling of the houses and all of that, the expansion and contraction really starts to ramp up at nighttime. And I typically, to be completely transparent, I do not take any sounds in any shape or form seriously in paranormal investigating. So, Greg, you're going to have to do more than just knock.
And it's like the lights, the blinking lights, the little sound of the equipment. You can't say every time that goes off that it is paranormal. It's a ghost. You can't do it. And I see this so much.
I would never say it was a ghost.
It frustrates me when people are like, thank you for setting off the meter.
I have a aversion to thanking inanimate objects, because no matter what, let's say we're walking down the street and you're like walking this way and I'm walking this way and I'm like, hey, Todd. And you're like, hey, Lauren. And I yell, thank you. That's what it makes me think of when people are thanking the act. I don't know. It's weird. And no offense, I'm so sorry if you think things. I know it's just like ingrained your politeness, and I think it's very sweet, but you don't have to, I promise. Because we don't even know if it's a person. They might not give a shit about
That's
your
right.
work. Be respectful just in case.
Right.
You don't have to thank everything that happens, because
Exactly.
sometimes, I would say 99% of the time, it's not paranormal. Because if it was more than 1%, 0.0001%, if activity was as prevalent as this field makes it seem, it would be science.
Yes.
It would be a scientific field of study,
Yes.
and it's not. So, which is another reason why I was saying earlier to you that I don't care. I have no skin in the game when it comes to people faking phenomena. I don't care. Okay.
Me,
It doesn't do anything to affect the work that I do or the things that I'm getting done, unless you're monetizing it.
Mhm.
Then, I mean, yeah, that sucks. Your integrity is stupid, but
Right.
I'm just going to continue educating people, and I don't care. Like, I'm not super big into like the public trash talk of other teams or other people in the paranormal.
Exactly.
I have some very strict, like, non-negotiables. If you are blatantly like super comfortable with like racial slurs, not into it; sexism, not into it; sexual assault, not into it; stealing money, not into it. Like, I have some very concrete, if you're public, oh, hey Kelly. No, it's not cool, but it's like, I have no skin in that game. It doesn't affect the work that I'm doing. I'm not condoning it necessarily, but like, I don't care enough to make it a part of my mission to like scream at people faking stuff. Because if you're monetizing it, that sucks. Your integrity shit. And the more we can educate people, though, the less we're going to have people that are faking it, because people are going to be educated on how to do this stuff. That's why I teach people how to build equipment.
But
That's why
you are an educator. You build equipment, you explain how it works. You do this, but what's happening is everybody else is taking this equipment and they're saying it's a ghost doing it, and it's pushing.
That's why I
us
teach about the
back.
equipment, though, because the more people know, I wear a T-shirt to every event. It says, "How do you know it works if you don't know how it works?"
Exactly.
So if you are ever in a situation where a team is faking something, all you have to be is, "Hey, how does your equipment work?"
And then
But also,
usually I get
too,
yelled at.
it's just make sure that you have your own integrity and that you are, educating the people around you. It's a lot of time wasted when we're going after these people in the entertainment industry on YouTube channels, on TikTok channels, things that are blatantly. It's like being so pissed, being so pissed that Grey's Anatomy isn't real doctors.
What? I thought they were real.
I'm sorry, Todd. I'm sorry. And I know that there are people in the medical industry that are like, yeah, it's kind of annoying because people will come in and think that, well, I saw it on Grey's Anatomy. Yes, you're going to have people like that all the time.
Yes.
All the time. Keep making sure that you're doing the work, you are educating yourself, that you have your integrity. And if you are, it's like, why? I don't know. It's like, what does it do? There are still people in this place that have locations that are allowing, sexual predators to work at their locations. There are people that are booking teams for events and getting their money and then just not showing up. There are, I mean, and no matter if they're giving refunds or anything, the fact that you are allowing people to book events with you and then you just don't show up to these events, that you're having people that have sexual assault charges, alone in buildings with people at these haunted locations. There's no, background checks with a lot of these places. There's no transparency. We have people putting out pieces of equipment that say ghosts just know how to use it. And so it's like, if I were to get so, and that's with equipment developers. I don't get pissed when an equipment developer puts out a piece of equipment that says ghosts just know how to manipulate this. If I got mad at every single equipment developer that was, lacking in integrity when it comes to selling their stuff, I would spend more time being pissed than I would trying to educate people and create things and be transparent in the equipment that I make. Yes, it's pretty, it's fine, but I will blatantly tell you, this is not necessarily made to communicate with ghosts, because we don't know how ghosts communicate. This is not made to find ghosts, because we don't know what ghosts are. This is not.
Maybe equipment developers like yourself, maybe they deal with things. Maybe you guys deal with things different. If I try to educate somebody, the first thing they do is get pissed off, and then they're like, well, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about.
I get told I'm wrong all the time.
That's how it works. It's so frustrating. And you want to see the field advance more.
Sure. We're not going to see it in our lifetime, though. So just be patient.
No,
I'm harboring
the next. Frustrating that
I want to harbor the next, the next whole, teams of young people that are going to come up in this. And I think it also comes from an addiction mentality. I mean, I was an alcoholic, and I know, and I've been around a lot of addicts. My mom was an alcoholic. You do not move forward unless you want to. So if I'm having a talk and I'm talking about these things, and there's somebody blatantly who's like, you have no idea what you're talking about, I don't take that personally. You're just, because also too, who the fuck knows if I'm right at all either? I'm not coming here from this place of I know better than you, because I don't know what any of this is either. I can tell you how this piece of equipment works, and I could show you how to build it. And I could show you that this wire goes here, and that's what it does. And this is what this capacitor does. And this is what this does. And it's very just concrete on paper. But, and also with people faking stuff, like, unless we're there and we're seeing them push on their two-way radio to set their REM pod off, just because it's unbelievable, we are in a field of complete disbelief. None of this exists on paper.
That is true.
None of this is real.
But people shouldn't have their team shirts on telling people that because the little lights blink and makes a noise that it's a ghost. And
there's no certifying agency, though. There's no certifying agency for paranormal teams. So
no, there's not. But if they're claiming to be a paranormal investigator and they're telling everybody that that's a ghost, then they should just take the shirt off, because they're not paranormal investigators. I'm a paranormal investigator, and I will go in and debunk everything until I can no longer debunk it. Then I can say it's plausible.
And there's a lot of people like that too. But no matter what, unless there's some certifying agency that says you're not allowed to wear that t-shirt if you do this or that, our anger isn't going to change these people going into these houses and telling people that they have a fucking demon and they need to get a priest.
Then they should have a shirt that says their team name and for entertainment only.
I mean, when we have a certifying agency, then that can maybe happen.
Maybe that's what needs to happen. That way we can get rid of the fakes from the ones that are trying to move this field forward.
The unfortunate part is that technically, until we even know what we're investigating, we're all fakes.
Well, that's true. But there's some of us that want to use data to find out the answers. So there are some of us trying.
Absolutely. There's a ton of us. There's a ton of us.
I'm not seeing a ton, but I do see good people, like people in our chat right now.
They're not, honestly. I have only been in the public eye paranormally for like the past year and a half, 2 years. That's it. When I came out with the crystal pod, that's when I sort of stepped into this like limelight. So not everybody that is doing this, in a more integral way is out in the public. There's a ton of spooky people in this world that don't make content. So they're out there. They're all out there. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm condoning people going into a house and saying you have a demon, get a priest. I'm not condoning that. I'm not. But I'm also not building a platform on being really pissed about it.
Well, no, but they
Because,
shouldn't be doing that.
well, no, of course not. People also shouldn't be stealing money and fucking
Exactly.
assaulting people and
So
killing people. And
where is the integrity? Where's the people with the integrity, the honesty, you don't see it anymore. Now it has become, at one time, it used to be
underground.
investigators. Yeah, it was people that
And you didn't
wanted
see the
to.
shitty people because they didn't have social media.
Exactly. Because when I start, and everyone's like, well, you need to get with the times. I'm like, no, wait a minute. My Mel meter works exactly the same as your Mel meter. You just don't know how to use it. And you're saying that everything that blinks is from a ghost when it's not. And
now, I will say
that's the things that need to change.
That approach is probably why people get mad. You don't know how to fucking use this.
Well, I mean, seriously, if everything if my Mel meter and their Mel meter is to do the exact same thing, but every time theirs goes off, they say it's a ghost, without doing any data at all, then they obviously don't know how to use the equipment.
But instead of coming at people and just being like, you're wrong, you're bad, take off your shirt, acknowledging the reality can sometimes push people in a better. So I think a lot of times when people throw on an investigation shirt, it's because they're seeing it on social media, they're seeing it on TV, they want to be a part of this community, and they're, like you're saying, of course, they shouldn't be doing this or that. And I absolutely get that. And the more we educate the community publicly, the more we accept these new ideas, but that we're also open to people needing to learn and grow, the more widespread that education is going to be, and the less those people will have the opportunity to do that. So it's like, spread the education, spread the awareness,
right?
And that will start to suffocate out teams with lack of integrity.
Yes.
Because I could try to educate the team that just really wants everything to be a demon. And because they want everything to be a demon, they're not going to listen to me.
Exactly.
Or I can educate the public, the general public, about how there's all these other steps that they should go through. And when that demon team,
Bagans, though.
Well, when that demon team comes into somebody's house who has been doing the research, being educated and everything, and that demon team says, oh my gosh, it's a demon. And that homeowner is like, well, wait a minute. What about this? What about this? What about this? Then they're slowly going to be suffocated out. So it's like, instead of us all consistently bitching about the toxic people, don't get me wrong, this is completely aside from my non-negotiables. Bitch about people that are committing crimes against men and women in their places, especially sexual assault.
Yes.
Bitch about the people that are stealing money. Bitch about the people that, like, those things, those are non-negotiables. The team going into a house saying it's a demon is I don't care. I would rather educate the public and educate everybody and push the education out there and push out, better practices, and not even better practices by saying you're wrong, but maybe, like, I understand that, people might think that something like this could be demonic. Let's look at it from a different angle instead.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's like, push out not toxic positivity, push out education.
Yes.
And, like, put all of your energy into the anger and the shit talking and the hate and all of this stuff. Push it, minus the non-negotiables.
That's right.
Fuck those people. Racists, predators, thieves.
And you're absolutely right with everything that you're saying. I fully believe in everyone that knows who I am.
And don't get me wrong, it pisses me off when people do that. Don't worry. The whole, like, it's a demon, it does. It makes me angry. But that's why I have to be like, but you know what? Your anger doesn't fix it. Communication does.
That's
education does.
And I know a ton of people in this field. like Larry. Larry and I had some words one time. I was venting, and
venting is okay. Having a safe space to vent, that's also really important.
yes, and me and Larry come to an understanding, and it's I am all about education. I want everyone to be educated in this field. Don't listen to Zach Bagans because he is an entertainer and
he's so entertaining.
He knows the business and he knows what words play. Demons, people, you say demons, people are like, oh my God, I want to see that. If you say, oh, look at the puppy, some people are like, well, who cares about that? I want to see the demon. So
exactly.
They're raised on these entertainers. I'm sure Zach might have started one time. He might have started out wanting to know about.
I mean, the first season, yeah, they're very like bro guy, but
yeah.
I mean, it's still early on investigating. It's okay. It's whatever.
Yeah,
he's an entertainer. He knows he's an entertainer.
That's right. But people need to know the difference between entertainment and reality. Most people would not even be able to sit in an investigation because you sit there by yourself in the dark with nothing happening.
Yeah.
So most people would never even be able to do it.
Well, not just that. I was at an investigation very recently, and there was somebody who was very, very excited about wanting to. Jim's crying again. Jim, did we make you cry again?
No, he's okay.
I was at an investigation and there was somebody that was very, very new to investigating, and they were so excited about showing us some of the stuff. And then they were getting so frustrated because we were like, well, what, maybe this is maybe a good next time, this, that, and the other thing. And they were getting really, really frustrated. And I was like, why don't you go back there and see if you can recreate it? And they were like, no, that's boring. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, like no big deal. Like this is how, if you want to find this and you want to have something that's like really, I'm like, I'm not trying to bash your personal experience and the excitement that you have from this picture, because this is your lived reality right now. You are so excited about this picture. This is motivating you. And I think that's awesome. Do I think that the picture's paranormal? Maybe not. Do I have some suggestions if you want them for next time? Absolutely. Yes. If you don't want to go back to that location, cool. Don't worry about it then. Go have fun, man. Go have fun. I don't need everybody interested in the paranormal to be an expert in the paranormal.
That's right. There is no experts or pros in the paranormal. No. And that's, you see that all the time. We're experts. No, you're not.
And that's okay. And you know what, Todd, I'm going to be honest.
If they need that title.
I thankfully have very seldom come across. I have been in situations where I will be like presenting my work and saying, I educate people about equipment. And then it's like, no, we're paranormal investigators. And I'm like, that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Even if you're like, I've been doing this for, and this is not directed at you, not directed at you. I've been doing this for 50 years. Yep. That doesn't mean anything. I've been alive for 38. I'm not an expert at being a fucking human.
That's right.
At all. So like, how can we say like, we've been in for so long, we know what we're doing? Do you, or is your ego now just getting away from you, expanding? Because the workshops that I do, sure, they're beginner friendly, but it's not for people that are not in the paranormal. It's for paranormal investigators. And I'm not telling you that I'm an expert at being a paranormal investigator. I can tell you how the parts work inside this alarm and how we can push it. Oh, Jim's back. He wiped his tears. I do like your background and your lighting, Jim, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, it was expensive divider.
Oh, nice. I like it.
Just somehow.
You're very much like Alien guy.
he is. That is his.
Is he actually an alien though?
You know what? I sometimes think that he possibly could be.
I was actually I was actually told by that by a medium one time.
We're all aliens, but
he's a hybrid.
She's like, I can see your eyes change, and it's like there's an alien channeling through you right now.
And you're like, My parents thought I was an alien because I could do this.
What's that,
It's like-
Vulcan?
Yeah.
Yes. So, Lauren, let me ask this question. Now, we're going back into equipment. You design it for a specific reason.
It has an occulty sort of the crystal pod specifically has sort of like a merging of mechanical application and like witchy occult application. Yeah.
So when you, especially the static cam or the static pod,
The seer pod.
when you create these things, what is your end goal for these products?
Well, it's so the crystal pod is it's a modified door alarm, and that mostly I made because I was too poor to buy equipment, and the team that I was on,
But that's a REM pod, right?
It's a proximity sensor.
Oh, okay.
A REM pod is like saying Kleenex.
Okay.
It's a proximity sensor, and the team that I'm on, Tri-C Ghost Hunters, Greg Fiketic had a proximity sensor. It's like the little black, the crystal pod, Ronnie. If we're gonna be best friends, Ronnie, I'm gonna need to see you with a crystal pod. It's like the little black alarm. You've probably seen them. They're like this big, and they're just black, and they're plastic. And a lot of people will use those like REM pods. Well, that's pretty much 100% of your REM pods are one of two things. It's either one of three things, I guess, because the DOS REM pod is actually, it's a microcontroller, but it's programmed to be a theremin with that temperature deviation. So it's programmed to be a theremin, or you have the junior theremins that you can get off of Amazon, which is theremins are capacitive proximity sensors that are actually the result of the Soviet government experimenting with proximity sensors. Fun fact. Or they're
that
these,
is a good fact.
Isn't it so fun? I was like, what were they experimenting with?
It all
was probably
comes back to the Soviets, Jim. You know that.
That is my favorite fun fact. And the then the ones that are inside any proximity sensor or REM pod that goes beep, 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 that's a door alarm. That's a modified door alarm. That's all that is. Still proximity sensor. They're still all the exact same freaking thing. But I built that because Greg Fiketic of Tri-C Ghost Hunters, his broke. And I was like, it's broken. That means I should take it apart and look at it. And I was like, can I take that apart and I'll see if I can fix it? And he's like, yeah, sure. Okay. And I took it apart and I was like, why am I trying to save up $200 to buy a DOS REM pod when I could fucking make this?
Right.
And so I made it and I wanted it to look like a DOS REM pod. So I put it in that like round, like cylindrical box.
Yes.
And I used to be a yoga instructor. And so I had all of these crystals because I used to sell crystals in my yoga studio. And which that's a whole other story. I've always been into just like spiritualism and stuff. So I was like, I have all these crystals. So I just started like gluing all these crystals all over it. I'm like, this is going to be so pretty. And my favorite color is purple. And oh, fuck yeah, Larry. Don't even like.
So if anybody has broken stuff, send it to Lauren.
Dave Giuliano sent me. It's hard because if there's microcontrollers, it's really hard to reverse engineer things with like microcontrollers in it because depending on what they, sorry, Tom. Depending on like what they program it with, you can't really find the like the coding for it. But I can typically, I don't know. I'm trying to. But Dave Giuliano has sent me old gear and things like that too. Yeah. I have had Val. Yes, I have remade people's equipment. I have taken apart at least just to see if I could fix it. I've had people giving me equipment that they just don't like, and they're just like, want to see what's inside of this. And I'm like, yes, I do. My friend Val, I think, posted a photo on her reel and of her just giving me some equipment at a ghost hunt. And I had no equipment other than like a knife. And so I'm just like stabbing at this thing, like trying to get it open and explaining to her what it is. It was so fun. But so then that's how the Crystal Pod was born. Just because I was like, this is so easy to make. And then I didn't want to just keep that to myself because people are out here spending $300 on this piece of equipment. So I'm like, I could figure out a way to teach people how to do this. So that's that. The sear device.
You teach people how to do it. You have a workshop, correct?
Oh yeah. Yes. Traveling workshop. I can do up to 30 people. I can facilitate. Holly, you stop it. Holly's one of my BFFs. She's supposed to say that. I have to send her a royalty check now for saying that. Just kidding. I can facilitate for 30 because I supply all the tools, all the alarms, all of the direction, all of the lights, the equipment, everything that you need to modify a door alarm into a proximity sensor for, whatever you use it for in the paranormal. We have those workshops. And then in process of the workshops, I teach you why a proximity sensor works, how it works within the range of like frequency that it works, how it relates to other pieces of equipment. So it ends up being sort of this opportunity to have this whole sort of educational experience about equipment. And then you get to make like a little thing and you could decorate it, and I bring stickers and it's a lot of fun.
And that is awesome. That's just in your area, correct?
No, I travel all over the place. I'm going, let's see. My surrounding states, but essentially if somebody were to say I have a workshop of 30 full people, then I'd travel, super far. But no, I travel to do that. That's why it's only service for 30, because I have this big, huge, it's almost as tall as me, kit that I can stack everything in, including like my soldering iron in case people break shit. We fix it. Everybody walks away with one. But no, it's not in my immediate area. It's not virtual because it's really it's an in-person experience. But I do travel. I do travel. I do paracons, haunted locations, team building, minimum 10 people, maximum 30. It's a lot of fun. I've done it for teams, for locations. I'm doing a few paracons this year. I'm going to like Iowa, Indiana. So in like this general area for it. Where else am I going? Pennsylvania. I mean, I'm traveling up to like 8 hours to go do a workshop.
Yeah. I'm
built for travel. It's everywhere. I got a camper. It's fine. I sleep at truck stops. But oh yeah. My friend Kira, who just commented, it's so much fun. She's been to have you been to 2, Kira? 2 workshops? She's one of my little helpers. She's another one of my little BFFs.
And that's a wonderful thing.
I've had people start businesses after my workshops too. You know what I mean? They start building them to sell for themselves. That's what that's for.
Oh, okay.
And but then
But what you're doing though is perfect, because you are, as you're building, you're explaining what they're actually building, which is fantastic. Because what would be the point of making something and not knowing how to use it?
How do you know it works if you don't know how it works?
That's right.
And then when it comes to other equipment though, like I have this beautiful secret top piece of equipment back here. I have a lot of things that are much more complex, that are sort of like programmed devices and things that are a little bit more intense for my own experimentation and for my own. It's not stuff that I manufacture in bulk to sell or anything. So I do a lot of behind the scenes building because I pretty much investigate solely with equipment that I have built, which I think in some ways does create a sense of control because I know exactly how everything is working around me. In terms of like data collection, at least. And then of course, then I can sort of change around experimentation and hopefully put together processes and techniques that can be accessible without using my equipment so that we can sort of go into that space where we're running experiments without stuff that I've solely built, or just with like the transparency. Because again, in this field, we have to be able to create processes and techniques and experimentation that can be recreated with predictable results.
Fantastic. And that's,
and I make everything look like it just hopped off of a time machine too. I can't help it. It all looks like 1851 World's Fair.
I love it.
I'm such a fucking theater kid. This is where my theater kidness comes in.
It's like ghost boxes. I like ghost boxes that look like the old
like
radios.
scent boxes.
Yes.
My dude. I love Jeff Fent.
Yes. And that is, I love those.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Now, what was I just going to say? I totally forgot. If people want to reach out to you, I have the homepage scrolling on the bottom there.
Liliana Marie Creative or Lauren Hantz. Lauren Hantz everywhere. And even if you can't remember Liliana Marie Creative, if you type in laurenhantz.com, it still routes you to my website.
Okay. All right. And on there, that tells you every place that you're going to be, correct?
Oh my God, all the things.
That has all your schedules.
My events, I'm hosting a few events this year. I'm doing a spirit and science event this year with Sharice Williams, where we're sort of like bringing together the occult and sort of the mechanical application. Like she's doing like tarot and I'm doing like static and EMF stuff. And we're sort of like joining forces.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's going to be really exciting. So there's build workshops, there's Paracons, I'm speaking still at a lot of places. It's going to be fun. It's a busy year.
Yes. And that's why I was so excited to be able to have you on the show. I know how busy you are. I see posts that you make, other people talking. I'm like, man, how does this girl get to do anything?
At 8:00 at night. This is why this is so nice. But we've needed to talk, Todd. So I'm really glad that we got to.
Yes.
And we need to talk again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I think that what you have going on with being a creator, a builder, a tinkerer, however you want to say it, I find that extremely beneficial in not just ghosts and hauntings, but for any kind of application. If somebody needed something and they wanted something custom, they could say, hey, Lauren, I need to know if you would be able to make something like this.
I love that because it sparks such a cool conversation, at least paranormal wise, because that's how this was built. You know, it was a conversation of like, can we do something that can detect, you know, shadow people? And I'm like, well, what are shadow people? And it's like, it always ends up being this really cool conversation to come up with these like awesome ideas. And I only come up with ideas because of conversations with other people. Right. None of this stuff is just born because I'm, you know, woke up one day and I was like, oh, maybe static. It's always because of the conversations like this, you know?
Right.
And I'm so appreciative of that.
I'd be like, Lauren, could you build me something with like a radar that can detect UFOs? And
I'd be like, fuck yeah, what are UFOs?
That's right. Any UAPs out there, anything that is, you know, we want to map it all.
Because there's also a whole bunch of satellites out there too.
Oh, I know. I see them almost every night. I go out and look up in the sky and I'll see one or two.
Oh my God. Have you seen that satellite train?
I have not ever seen.
I have seen that for the first time. And I literally thought that I was going to get abducted. And I'm like, I can see how people can think that they're seeing something. And it's like this, it's like 10, 12, 15 or 20 lights that just, and I was like, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I know that.
The Starlink.
I know what that is. Yes, the space. Is it the SpaceX satellite? Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
it's like a train of sat.
Yeah, the Star. They call. I think it's actually called Starlink.
Yeah,
I know. Yes, Starlink. That's what it is.
Jim, is that
I was
what it's
like,
called?
isn't SpaceX
Yeah, that's
like
what it's
the weird military thing? Which, I mean, really, in Port New York. Oh, nice. It's so crazy to see. It is so, and I saw it when I pulled into Sweet Springs to investigate, and I get out of my car and I see it, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm by myself, and I'm like, oh my God, do I hide? What do I do? And then it like clicked, my mania calmed down, and I was able to, oh, it's that like weird train of Starlink.
And right, it's tough. It would be tough to actually know for certain. I mean, there is programs that can tell you where these Starlinks are.
Oh yeah, I have an app on my phone.
Yep. So we know, but
yeah, they're all mapped out.
But
there are ones that are like not in commission anymore, but you could still pull them up on the app.
Yeah, and people, they're out in a different place and they see maybe 3 or 4, maybe stacked a little different, and they're like, "Is that UFOs?"
The triangles.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, then thinking of that though, it's so easy to realize how suggestible we are.
Yes.
Even with ourselves.
Yes. And that's true. I mean, our perception of things gets us in a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. Because, there comes that belief system. We want to believe it. But then you have the religious aspects. No, we can't believe that because this says we're not supposed to do that. There's just so much stuff that goes into UFOs, aliens, the ghosts and hauntings.
Religion and spiritual beliefs is like a whole other conversation we can have.
Absolutely.
That's also fascinating.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll definitely have to get you on, talk about that kind of stuff as well.
We'll just have like a series. Like today we talked about like equipment, and then we're going to talk about like witchcraft.
Yes.
And then we got to let Jim lead the whole conversation and tell us about how he's a fucking alien.
Yeah, because Jim, he knows all about this exopolitics thing, and
I was going to say, I was like, he was dropping some, names and locations. Don't think I didn't hear that stuff.
Well, you're probably on a list now, Lauren, because you make stuff. So
that's okay, because if I'm on a list and then I get like abducted and plucked out, then I'll get some answers and it'll be fine.
That's right. Oh, well, I'll tell you. There you go. Put that on. Well, Lauren, I had a fantastic time talking with you about a little bit of everything.
It was yes. Good.
And I had specific topics that I wanted to cover, especially with all the equipment and things like that. But
I'm sorry. Good luck with that ever with me.
Yeah, it kind of just went all over the place. But you know what?
I told you ADHD.
That's
okay. Why I dropped out of college.
That's okay. And I wanted to get Jim involved more because he's into the ETs and things like that. And I know we could have definitely put that in there, but yes, the banter all the way around was very nice, and it's definitely great to talk to somebody like you, to get your opinions on what you think and how things work and things like that. So I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're definitely going to have you back on for sure.
Oh, hell yeah. We have to. There's so many questions that we asked throughout this entire thing that still need answered.
I know, right?
And which really, that's all of these conversations are, just creating more questions.
That's right. And that's good though, because because most people, they have it in them, they want to know more. So as you're talking about equipment, somebody's like, oh, wait, how does that piece of equipment work? Or what is that piece of equipment again? Or, you know what I mean? So most people are generally curious
Mhm.
as it is.
Oh
with
yeah.
paranormal. And
Take
you know,
apart your
just
dad's TVs, everybody. Take them apart.
that's right, especially the old Zenith Masters and
Oh man, you got it like those big tube TVs. Oh, that is fun. And they were like big. The computers were like big IBM computers. Just that.
yes.
Oh man.
And see, if I was a TV repair, I could never have been a TV repairman back in the day because you would have seen X-rays of me on the front.
Yeah.
Because I would have did something wrong. It would have just been chaotic.
You would have been a
like,
ghost.
why do I see your bones on the front of this TV?
You would have been a future ghost on that TV for somebody.
That's right. Be like, pay no attention to the bones there. Well, all right, Lauren, thank you so much for being a guest. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again for sure.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Jim, thank you very much, sir. And I will talk to you very soon as well. Thank you to all our viewers and listeners. This was an incredible show. I had a wonderful time. And I want to thank everybody out there. And I hope you have a good evening. Thank you for tuning in with us tonight. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow to receive notifications when new content is made available. A Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure is looking to talk with ufologists, researchers, investigators, contactees, abductees, channelers, and more for upcoming shows. Or if you have stories, photos, videos, questions, suggestions, or comments, please contact us through Messenger or email us at paranomalypodcast@gmail.com. And you can also visit us at paranomalypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. I thank you again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure.